in the way business is done. Now, that's why it's encouraging occasionally to meet congressmen who've been on the other side of regulations, lawmakers who actually are businessmen. And two of them are with us now. Representative John Fleming, he's a Republican from Louisiana, also a medical doctor, by the way, and Representative Jared Polis, he is a Democrat of Colorado. We welcome both of you. Gentlemen, good to see you. We can really talk business here. I got to ask both of you, and John Fleming, I'll start with you. Do you get fed up with all those folks inside the Beltway who really don't know what it's like to meet a payroll?
Yes, David. I really think that anyone who passes laws that affect businesses and jobs should have the baptism of owning a business and making a payroll.
I love it. Would that were possible. Do you think there's some way to make a career in politics illegal? That is, to get rid of professional politicians. Maybe it's term limits. Maybe it's making sure that you can't be a politician unless you've had a real business. But is it possible to do that?
Well, of course.
Hold on a second, Mr. Polis. We'll go to you in a second. Sure. Mr. Fleming, go ahead.
Well, you would be asking the lawmakers themselves to do that. So what's the chance of that happening? And I don't think that absolutely every congressman and senator should have owned a business, but I think a critical mass should. And right now, from my observation, very few have. And when they pass these sweeping laws, they really have no insight as to the impact that it's having on many lives out there.
Well, and Mr. Polis, I'm going to be talking about this at the end of the show, but I know George McGovern a little bit. He was a big liberal legislator. He actually ran a business after he gave up politics and had a hell of a time. It got so bad that his business went bankrupt, and he came to the point where he was blaming some of the laws that he was actually responsible for creating for setting his business. He said, I wish I knew about this when I was making those laws.
These are all valid experiences to have. I certainly bring my background as a business person, having started 9 different businesses, taking a business public every day. Different disciplines have different levels of experience. It's great to have educators in here. It's great to have a few attorneys in here. Maybe we have a few too many, but it's great to have a few. It's great to have people with community activism. I mean, the diversity of Congress, I think, really enhances the overall institution.
But, Mr. Fleming, sometimes when I listen to a Barney Frank or a Chris Dodd or even a Tim Geithner occasionally, it seems to me that the whole idea of the private sector is some kind of abstraction. It's like a philosophical concept. It's not necessarily something that's grounded in reality, where you're talking to a guy who knows what it's like to hire somebody, who knows what it's like to have to fire somebody or lay somebody off. I mean, that abstraction quality is what bothers me.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, David. I think that without being in the foxhole, having risked your life savings, taking chances every day, struggling with the paperwork, the bureaucracy, the taxes that small businesses have to deal with every day, I think that our lawmakers are far too separated. And, with the recent tax increases that we're beginning to see, even though there are increased tax rates coming down the line for individuals, most of that is going to impact small businesses who actually employ the majority of people in this country.
Well, and some of those taxes are huge. I hope you don't mind if I call you by your first names, but Jared, let me go to you, because you look to be a little younger than I am anyway. But when it comes to taxes, and let's talk about one in particular, which is still kind of ill-defined, but the carbon tax credit. Some people say that could add about $1 trillion to the cost of doing business in the United States. Do you think the folks who are proposing this for possibly very good reasons, I know members of my family are very strong believers in it, et cetera, but really don't have the idea of how it would affect businesses on the ground?
Well, I think how it affects businesses has got to be integral to how we consider the whole problem. First of all, those who agree with me, and it sounds like yourself as well, believe that global warming is a real threat and we need to do something. Then it comes to the question of what is that something. When we talk about a cap-and-trade system, we're using market mechanisms. There's going to be an auction for the caps, and they'll be tradable between companies, give an incentive for conserving energy. Some companies will benefit under it. Yes, there'll be winners and losers, but it's kind of a net neutral thing as long as the revenues are put back into the system.
A net neutral thing. I don't see. That's what I don't get. If it's going to cost an extra $1 trillion, or even if it's $100 billion, frankly, that's still real money in my mind, Mr. Fleming.
Well, David, this is really a liberal socialist policy straight from the socialistic kingdoms in Western Europe. It's straightforwardly a tax. It's a tax on Low-income people, they'll probably be hit the most because that's a higher part of their budget. It's going to hit business, big and small.
Well, let's just talk about your business. And I called you Mr. You're actually Dr. Fleming, but let me call you John if you don't mind. You own 500 Subway franchise, or at least you did, 135 UPS shipping stores. What would that mean specifically? How would that affect your businesses?
Well, to be correct, it's 30 Subway stores with 500 employees.
Oh, all right. I got it wrong here. Forgive me.
But I'm still a small business. Well, it would affect us in every realm. It would affect our light bills. It would affect heating and cooling. It would affect the actual cost of the product that we serve. We would find our employees having difficulty getting back and forth to work with increased energy costs there. So anytime you have a government that spends too much, taxes too much, and basically wastes too much, and then tries to add to the tax system a situation with hidden taxes, like this cap and tax program that we're talking about, all it's going to do is hurt workers. It's going to hurt those who have jobs. It's going to decrease jobs. It's definitely going to hurt the small business owners.
All right. Now, Jared, you asked, and I got to tell you, I'm not yet convinced that global warming is as big a problem as a lot of people think it is. I haven't.
Separate discussion for us to have on another day.
It's a separate discussion. We're not going to go there now.
Yeah.
But assuming that you do think it's something that needs to be addressed, and there is always a cost to pay for something. I mean, all the pollution controls we put in the 60s and 70s, there was a cost. Maybe in the end it was worth it, but there was a cost. How would it cost your business?
Two quick points on that. First of all, in my district in Colorado, green tech jobs are some of the fastest growing jobs in our district. It's one of the few areas we've added jobs the last few years. I think this is going to be a dynamic growth sector for our country. It'll address national security issues in addition to global warming issues. So it's a critical national priority to do. The money that's raised through an auction of these carbon emission licenses will be put back into the system. We could use it for general tax cuts. We can use it for targeted tax cuts. These are the types of things we're talking about in terms of the revenue.
All right, I understand, but you're talking about the policy, and I just want you to think as a businessman. Forget about politics if you can. I know you're in the Capitol. It's almost impossible to do, but, I mean, how would you have to change the way you do business? Would you have to have a separate accounting department to deal with the carbon tax credits, or what?
Sure. My most recent business is a flower company, ProFlowers.com. I'm no longer an owner of that. Sold that about 2 years ago. In that case, it would absolutely provide an incentive for that flower company, still exists today, to look into more energy-efficient ways of doing their business. Or if we thought about it critically as a company, and there was an incentive to do it, an economic reason to do it, we'd absolutely start making different decisions than we're making today.
All right. And again, John, I got to ask you, would you have to have a separate Department of Accounting to deal with this, or hire more people to make sure that they were following the regs right, or what?
Well, yes, of course you would, and you'd have to have a whole separate accounting department. You're talking about creating a whole new market that will feed on this, and so the only jobs that are going to go out there are going to be to CPAs. And I can tell you, in my area where we have oil and gas, the Haynesville Shale, it could be devastating to our area, our economy. And so, and if you talk to economists, I've not found one that said there would be a net increase of jobs. They all suggest that there will be a reduction in jobs, and these so-called green jobs are going to be actually lower paying.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. But the fact is that, you know, clearly you would have to change. I mean, this is all about changing the way America does business, Jared. I mean, that's what the president himself has said needs to be done. So if you're going to change the way you do business, that requires a cost.
We're going to change it for the better, and I'd call it an investment rather than a cost. These green jobs are very real in my district in Colorado. I've seen other members of Congress, other districts across the country. I was in upstate New York for some field hearings. General Electric, a private company, has a wind turbine training facility there. They're creating jobs in alternative energy sectors every day. This is going to be the strength of our economy going forward, and it'll help make America more competitive.
You know, I didn't mean it to be so focused on carbon credits, but that's just one example of dozens, if not hundreds, of regulations that need the input of you two guys, because you two guys are some of the few guys that have real life experience in the business world. I hope you have more of an input in legislation as we come down the line. John Fleming, Jared Polis, good to see you both.
Thanks, David.
Thank you so much, David.
Thanks very much for being here. Well, time to hear now from our panel, Fox Business